Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, a company bulldozed my ranch, claiming it encroached on their land, and I honestly have no idea what to do. Let's dive right into the story. The first one starts like this. So I own a small ranch and I really love everything about it. Even the hard work and the few unpleasant aspects of dealing with it. I actually inherited the land after I worked on it for many years. My older brother, who was 10 years older than me, had always been the person that I looked up to, and after our mother died, he more or less raised me. He was the original owner of the ranch until he ended up dying and leaving it to me. When he got the ranch, I wanted to see my brother in action as a farmer. Soon it just became like a second home to me, and I found myself working on it without it being something I really thought about much. One thing that I really love about it is that some of the buildings are on the older side, but my brother did not just tear them down for newer, better ones. Instead, he saw the beauty in the old barn and silo and fixed it up instead. I came to love the natural beauty and the type of architecture that is so old you don't really see anymore. I also love the animals and don't mind waking up early to take care of them and making sure that they are brushed and fed. I learned that taking care of the animals even before I did anything for myself was doing something really good and selfless. I think what I love more is how much the ranch and the land it sits on makes me feel like I am home. I feel like my brother is still here and watching me take care of things. It's a deep emotional connection that I cannot easily put down into written words, but it feels like the ranch is a part of me and the entire point of my life revolves around me being here and doing this. I would not have had any problems or need to tell a story if it wasn't for the fact that some big shot CEO bought the land next to mine and from that moment wanted to start problems with me. I can tell that he is an entitled type of person that never really had to suffer or work hard for anything. It's the way that he moves around and speaks to people like they are all beneath him. Especially when he decided to start talking to me and it was clear he saw me as nothing more than a farmer and figured that I must be stupid and dirty. He had complaints about the ranch, which I did not feel were fair because he knew it was here before he got the land next door to me. Also, I'm calling him CEO and know that he is one because he could not go 5 minutes before bragging about his status and even using his hands to show that CEOs were at the top and farmers like me were at the bottom. His biggest complaint was that the ranch was an eyesore because of the old buildings. He could not see the beauty in them like I could and insisted that I was doing a bad job instead. Again, I don't think it's fair for him to tell me that I'm a bad farmer or rancher when he knows nothing about the job and what goes into it. Unless he is cleaning out a pigsty, then I don't think he should get an opinion on what makes a rancher good or bad. He would brag to me about the plans he had for his property and how he was gonna use it for his company and get even more money. He even tried to throw money into my face by saying that his one property of his was gonna make his company more money in a year than my ranch would see in a lifetime. Now, I could handle somebody being full of themselves and wanting to brag. I could handle his complaints and his entitled attitude even since I didn't need to deal with it on a daily basis. The one thing that I could not ignore was when he suddenly decided that my fence was over the property line. He did not do this in one big dramatic showing like a lot of other entitled people would. Instead, he would just drop subtle little comments about it, telling me that he saw on the map that my fence looked a little bit over, asking me if I had plans to redo the fence and move it a little bit. Things that I was picking up on by pretending I was not, just to avoid it turning into an actual big argument. For reference, the fence was not over the property line either and sat right in between our properties like it was supposed to. Over time, his subtle hints turned into more obvious ones and I even caught him with a measuring tape trying to check something out, but I didn't know what. I knew what he was trying to do because when I was a lot younger, my sister would try to do something similar to me and mess with my head. He wanted to plant doubt in my mind and hoped that I would make it my own idea to act on it. Unlike my sister trying to convince me that my cookie was smaller and making me want to switch, he wanted something more. I figured that one of these days he was just gonna come up to me and tell me straight out what he wanted. My guess was the fence moved, which I didn't have any plans on letting happen. I had to go away for a few days and I didn't have anybody on the ranch full time. I had somebody coming in to feed the animals, but that was about it. I guess Mr. CEO must have realized I was gone because he decided to hatch his master plan. While I was gone, he decided to take a bulldozer to not only the fence of my property, but a huge portion of my property as well. The worst thing of all was that he bulldozed that old barn that I had loved. The barn that my brother had used to teach me about old things having beauty, the barn that still had animals in it. Yeah, he was so careless that he didn't even make sure the barn was empty before using a bulldozer on it. He had killed animals and that just really made my blood boil. He really did not care about anybody but himself, and as soon as I saw what he did, I knew that I was gonna make sure that he paid dearly for what he had done. A new fence was built well within my property, and on my front door was a note from the CEO. He told me that he exercised his rights to move the fence due to the fact that I was apparently encroaching on his property. He messed with the wrong farmer, I can tell you that right now. I went right over to his house, ready to at the very least yell at him and at the worst even fight him. He was still arrogant and told me that he had paperwork showing that it was his property and I should not have been encroaching on it. He even told me to my face that the animals dying were my fault and I should not throw the blame onto other people. He then said that he was feeling generous and he would give me $200 for the loss of the barn and the animals. I cannot even tell you what stopped me from just punching him out right then and there. I think it might have been my brother's voice in the back of my head, if anything. I was not gonna win this kind of fight with my fists, and instead I found a good lawyer and told him about the entire thing. The good news was that my family were always organized people and I had the deed and we got a new property survey. I also found old pictures of the barn showing it was not new. I took pictures of the bulldozed area that he didn't clean up, and as horrible as it was, I got pictures of the animals he killed. I was filing a civil suit against him, and between the loss of property, livestock, emotional distress and property, I was asking for $422,000. The CEO must have been used to using his power and entitlement to make things he didn't like just go away quietly. He tried to threaten me to drop the case, claiming he had the best lawyer money could buy and that I would not be able to afford anybody good. His lawyer was good in the sense that he kept getting things pushed back to take longer. So eventually the trial did come, and because of his own antics, it was a bit of a local spectacle that people were actually interested in. My lawyer turned out to be better than his and showed all the evidence and proof that the CEO had faked evidence of the land belonging to him. He made the CEO look like one of the worst people on the planet, and no matter what the CEO's lawyer did, it did not seem to help his case. I was granted the full amount that I was asking for, and the CEO was actually in shock that he had lost. He really believed having enough money and status meant that he could get away with doing anything he wanted. Well, he paid me the money, but it was only the beginning of his trouble with the law. He was being gone after by animal rights groups, and they wanted him to face criminal charges for the murder of the animals. This tanked his reputation in the news and everything even more, and his company was feeling the sting from that. His company's stock prices were tanking, and he was just being seen as this total scumbag that nobody wanted to deal with. Thankfully, this piece of crap ended up behind bars for killing my beloved animals. Meanwhile though, I'm just trying to get my ranch back in a way that makes me feel happy. I spent a good chunk of the money trying to get an architect that could build the barn in a similar old style the other one had. I got new livestock to fill the barn with, and of course I moved the fence back to where it was meant to be. I tried to look on the positive side that with all the money I could make the ranch even better than before. This time the ranch 2.0 was going to have some security measures to prevent issues in the future. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I am happy that this dirtbag actually went behind bars, because that is exactly what he deserved. Still a very sad story, and it's just insane how greedy some people can get. Either way, the next one is titled, "Company does not allow me to have my phone, so I cost them $100,000. And this one is from r/malicious compliance. If you enjoy the story so far, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to not miss any of my daily uploads. So I've worked in warehouses for years. A few years back I was a contractor. Companies would hire us and bring in 20+ people for a few weeks when they desperately needed help. I was a shift lead, usually the highest person on site, and needed to talk to my boss regularly throughout the day on a company phone. One warehouse had a policy where only managers could have their phone on the floor, and technically I was not a manager. Everyone under me was instructed to leave them in their car or a locker, however, I needed mine. One day I was talking on the phone to my boss, and one of the managers for the company we were working for told me and demanded that I hand him my phone. And well, I refused. He then threatened to kick me out, so I rounded up all my workers and said we are taking a break. We all go outside and I tell my boss what happened. He comes to the site instantly and starts talking to their boss and tells him that I need my phone on the floor. But since I don't have the manager in my title, they refuse. So my boss decided I cannot do my job, so nobody under me can do theirs either. The end of the day, the other company is pissed that we didn't get any work done and decides to cancel our contract, which cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because it's written in the contract that they will have to pay to send us home before the original end date. We all still got paid and got 2 weeks off before having to go somewhere else. And the next one is another malicious compliance story titled, "Cable Company Told Me I Don't Have Cable." And by the way, if you've ever had any instances of malicious compliance happen in your life, I would love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. So this happened around the year 2000. I had just purchased a house and met the previous owners while they were moving out. They were really nice people and we had a friendly conversation about the house. The previous owner mentioned that the cable bill was paid up until the end of the month, about 3 more weeks, and that he had already turned in his cable box, but the cable signal should still be active until the end of the month. I told him thanks and we let him finish packing up. We moved in the following week, and when I hooked the cable to my TV, I got all the basic cable channels, which was all I was planning on getting anyway. Come the end of the month, I called the cable company and asked to sign up for basic cable. The sales rep told me that there was gonna be a $100 hookup fee. I told them that the previous owner had left his account active and that I was literally watching cable as we speak, so there should not be a hookup fee because the cable was already hooked up. They just needed to start billing me for basic cable. The rep then clicked on her keyboard and told me that her data showed that the address I was at does not have cable and that they will need to send out a crew to activate the signal. I told her that I was not paying $100 for a hookup fee and said never mind, I don't want cable. I waited another month, still had cable, and called the cable company back to ask what it would cost to get basic cable. A different operator from before said that it would cost something like $30 a month and a $100 hookup fee. I asked why the $100 hookup fee? Well, she said that it was because my address does not currently have cable. I told her never mind, I don't want cable unless they waive the hookup fee. She said she wasn't authorized to waive the fee, I just thanked her and then hung up. 4 years later, we still had cable, but we ended up moving out of state for work. The next one is titled, "Completely Delete a Client Company's Website and Email Services." Are you sure? Okay, so this happened a few years ago, the details are a bit fuzzy and the chat is paraphrased. I was T2 tech support for a company that handles my country's largest ISP's entire professional email services, all its DNS management services, and a large portion of its website building and web hosting services too. This company is tiny, minute, not even a blip in the radar, but has power that I will likely never again hold at my fingertips. One day, a ticket comes in from an ISP. Big Client Company is moving away from our proprietary email services and into Microsoft 365 or some such equivalent change. This usually meant that I got to help the client through the process of changing DNS records, migrating inboxes, or just backing up emails and even actually setting up some stuff on the Microsoft side. That's technically not my job, but the ISP's T1 tech support was woefully untrained for anything, even remotely technical, and terribly unprepared for most things merely commercial, and my company was awesome and treated me right. So onto the ticket, ISP, client is moving from service X to service Y. Please remove their subscription from the database. Me, there seems to be some sort of mistake here, which was very common. We remove them from there once the new service is set up and running. Otherwise, it will delete everything in their subscribe package, including all email storage, DNS records, and website. You likely want to change their subscription to not include email services, but just keep the rest since your Microsoft subscription does not include DNS and web hosting management. And even that change only after they have their new email service set up. ISP, yada yada, confirm remove their subscription. Me, are you absolutely sure? This process is not recoverable. All their emails, DNS records, and entire website, including database, will be permanently deleted. ISP, request has been submitted. Remove subscription. At this point, it's been a couple of days since the first ticket, so I call my boss over, absolutely wonderful guy and extremely intelligent, and tell him what they are asking me to do. Boss, alright, let's show them what they pay us because we know things and they don't. Don't delete the subscription but suspend all the services that would be affected. Keep those tickets at hand and expect a phone call. If they call you, tell them to go talk to me. God, that felt good. I mean, I felt bad for the client because their entire company basically shut down for an afternoon, but when they called my work phone directly from the ISP, uncommon, usually just for emergencies, and the nice lady asked me what had happened with the client in that tone that says, "I'm doing my best to hear all sides before making a decision, but I'm freaking the hell out right now." And I directed her to the tickets where I very clearly stated what would happen if I did what they told me to do, and then told her to call the boss. I felt so vindicated. Boss later told me to let them sweat for a couple hours because the process should have been unrecoverable and then turn the services back on. ISP was, yet again, absolutely thrilled with us and my name kept coming up even more often as the person that solves things. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story with an update, so please watch until the end to get the final conclusion. Our son and daughter-in-law, 26-year-old, have been together for 2 years and live together. We have always thought she's a very nice girl and she seems to make my son happy, so no problem from us. Our son has his own law firm that he is currently trying to get started. We are very proud of him and we are fortunate enough to help him with a startup loan. Daughter-in-law works at a retail job that she is very happy with, but some time ago husband and I were over at their apartment and we decided to order some food. Husband and I wanted to pay, and since daughter-in-law were ordering from her phone, we gave her our card so she could draw the money from our account. We thought it goes without saying that this was to draw an amount once for the lunch. However, daughter-in-law apparently put our card into her Apple Pay and have been using it since. We did not notice for some months, but recently we saw withdrawals that we didn't recognize. We had our accountant look into it and he discovered that 1, daughter-in-law has been using our card on her phone, and that number 2, she has spent around $17,000 so far. We were quite shocked and called her up and asked why the hell she's been using our card. She got very defensive, tried to deny it, and eventually said she was entitled to it and why do we care since we have not noticed her use over 4 months. We told her she needed to pay us back immediately or we would report her actions for theft. She apparently does not have the money to pay us back. We have gone to our son and he has offered to pay us back even though he actually cannot afford to. This is not about the money for us, but more about the fact that she has stolen a huge amount of money. While we are comfortable and it took us time to notice, we still recognize the seriousness of stealing $17,000. Our son has completely dismissed her behavior and excused it as her being stressed. And yeah, sure, ripe stars, when I get stressed I also steal $17,000. What a stupid excuse. Anyway, she has taken no responsibility and we are honestly wanting to go forward with the police report to teach her consequences to her actions. Would we be the a-hole for doing this? Edit, they are not married, referring to her as daughter-in-law is just easier for the sake of storytelling. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Is OP the a-hole here or not? And by the way, personally I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole. I would instantly report that person to the police, even if she is part of the family or whatever. You don't just steal $17,000 without consequences. Especially after being confronted. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Nevertheless, someone on Reddit said, I work in law enforcement and if you report this to the police, they will take a report and forward charges to the DA. Usually then, the credit card cancels the debit portion as fraudulent. If you just chose to sue her civilly, you will still be liable for the debt, and even if you get a judgment, she may not pay it. I would not give her any special pass to avoid criminal charges. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. Here's your unhappy situation. You can either get the police involved, go nuclear, hope for a felony conviction, hope your son wakes up with the humiliation, and you save him. Or you wait the 10 years or so before your son comes to his senses and they get divorced, after 2 children and a mortgage, financially ruining your son for the next 20 years. Those are your 2 choices, either go nuclear and fight like hell for him to wake the F up, or let it go and be prepared for his ultimate ruination in 10 years. Personally, I would try everything in my power to save my son, even if it meant I could fail and he wouldn't talk to me for 10 years. It's what parents do for their children. We try to save them and sometimes it means we need to run into a burning building. I'm so sorry. Comment number 3, not the a-hole, the entitlement. I do have to ask, was your son aware that this was happening before you approached him? Also, what was she spending it on? 17k is a hefty and brazen amount to spend in 4 months for someone who is used to retail salary. And thankfully guys, we have a final update and it reads like this. So we were utter and completely shocked with our son's nonchalant way of handling this and at a loss. We desperately wanted to fight for our son, but since initial confrontation he had been avoiding us. We decided we would take the advice and call the police to press charges, however, we wanted to let our son know before doing so. Husband and I decided to show up at his office since he had been ignoring our calls and texts. I know this might sound boundary crossing to some, but we desperately wanted to talk to our son. Initially he got angry and asked us to leave, but he calmed down and agreed to hear us out. We told him our side of the story and to say the least, he was shocked. He apologized profusely, cried a little and begged for forgiveness. He told us that he was blinded by love, working 14 hours a day and under the impression that we had gifted his girlfriend the money. His girlfriend had apparently told him that we wanted to spoil her as our future daughter-in-law and that we gave her carte blanche to buy herself nice things as a way to welcome her to the family. And that we had since changed our minds on spoiling her and now wanted all the money back knowing that she cannot afford it. She had told him that we did that as a manipulative way to force her out of his life to try and control him. He was also under the impression that she would spend maybe $3,000 to $5,000 and not $17,000. He was livid and was actually the one who in the end convinced us to pursue legal action. He actually helped us call the police right then and there at his office after our talk. We then went with him home and helped him pack up all her stuff before she came home. She was not on the lease, living rent-free, so kicking her out was no issue. We offered to stay with him for the blow-up, but he wanted to handle it on his own. From what he has told me, she did not take this lightly, so our son's ex has now been pressed with charges and we are awaiting further information. Like some of you pointed out, it's a sufficient amount and she's been pressed with criminal charges. Our bank has also been informed and we are told we will likely get our money back. She blew up on the entire family, but no one but our other daughter-in-law is taking her side. Other daughter-in-law is a whole story for another time perhaps, but we are now glad to officially announce that we are thief-free in the family. We appreciate all your feedback, advice and engagement. And wow, Ripe Stars, I'm so happy for the turn this story took, and I guess you could say that the son of OP finally grew a spine. I think he really dodged a bullet there. Before I let you guys go, we will read one last story from Petty Revenge. It is titled, "The maintenance man woke us up at 6 AM with hammering in the empty apartment next door, so I got even. This is the second day in a row that I've done this, but it's Saturday today, my guy. I simply got up, asked my husband to be patient with me as he's staring at me confused because he saw the look on my face and knew that someone was about to get it. So I went to the bathroom that's adjoining the sawing and hammering. I put Baby Shark on a loop and taped my phone to the wall. The saw stopped almost immediately. We could hear them talking from one room to another, but the hammering was still happening. By 8 AM, there was silence. 8:47 AM, they knocked on the door and apologized for waking us up and said they hope we have a good weekend. Nothing about the music, but they are switching to pulling carpet for the day, which is quiet. I thanked them and wished them luck, then I went inside and stopped the music. Victory, it is small, but it is mine. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you again tomorrow."